January 15th, 2026, Buddhadhamma, chapter 11.11. Conclusion, part 2, page 1228 to 1235. Buddhadhamma. Today we're going to read E, F, and G. E, abandonment of sense pleasures. E1, abandonment of sense pleasures, stage of excellence. E2, abandonment of sense pleasures, wholesome stages. E3, abandonment of sense pleasures, inferior stage. F, perfect happiness. And G, acting for the happiness of all. E, abandonment of pleasures. E1, stage of excellence. To experience a genuine, internal, independent, and refined kind of happiness, which is complete in itself. Here, a person has gone beyond a desire for sense pleasure. He or she will automatically and naturally refrain from inclining or circling back towards a pursuit of sense pleasures. Such a person is utterly free from the problems arising from sense desire. E2, abandonment of sense pleasures, wholesome stage. The abandonment of sense pleasures of those who aspire to and practice in order to reach more refined forms of happiness. This abandonment is suitable for those who are disenchanted with sense pleasures and are prepared to train in order to reach higher forms of happiness, or even for those who may not have reached the stage of disenchantment, but who see the danger in sensuality, recognize the value of, and wish to experience more independent kinds of sukha, happiness, and voluntarily take up spiritual practice for the sake. This willingness for and awareness of self-awareness in practice, in application, in applying, helps to prevent it from ill effects resulting from repercussions or overly forceful effort. Whenever one no longer wishes to train, or when the faith, sattha, for training, sikha, is truly depleted, one should acknowledge defeat and stop. For example, if one has been ordained as a bhikkhu who voluntarily gives up the monastic training, although repeatedly being ordained and disrobing is not recommended, if someone does this with this sincerity, it can help to foster spiritual preparedness. And one can consider it a valid part of the training, who is seen as an example of Venerable Sita Sariputra, who is ordained and disrobed 7 times before he finally reached the fruit of Arihatship. Now, although he had attained the higher abidings of concentration attainment, Vihara Samapatti, he still disrobed. This matter of referring at all on the custom of temporary ordination for disrobing. We're going to discuss that in Appendix 4. And E, abandonment of sense pleasure 3, inferior stage. To abandon sense pleasure out of reactivity and resistance and subsequently fall into the opposite extreme, here one undertakes severe punishment ascetic practices, piling up suffering for oneself by targeting one's body or life and one's loathing for sense pleasures. This self-torment or exaggerated reaction, which lacks the understanding and self-awareness described in the previous stage, creates additional forms of mental problems. Keep in mind that Buddhism considers the non-harming of oneself to be a vital principle, and equally a form of Dhamma practice as referring to from a form of harming others. Those who have been overly forceful in practice or who have reacted to sense pleasure by extreme forms of behavior should switch to the training described in the previous stage. Buddhism, however, teaches to discern and acknowledge things as they truly are, and to train oneself in order to progressively develop in the eternal law, the Dhamma. Although the law of Dhamma practitioners have different degrees of maturity and at different stages of development, they live together harmoniously and support one another, promoting genuine well-being and encouraging each person's spiritual growth. They do not bully or disparage each other. Together they build an environment of peace, friendliness, dignity, prosperity, and happiness. F, perfect happiness. Here we arrive at the highest form of happiness, the highest form of sukha, which Buddhism is described as Nippanam Paritam Sukham in Pali language. Nippanam Paranam Sukham. Nibbana, Nibbita, is the supreme kind of happiness. When one has the initial contact with supreme happiness, or even when simply referring to it, one should be familiar with this main attribute so that one can check whether one's own happiness is going to be in the right direction. And how can it be improved? How is its advantages and may be increased and disadvantages lessons? There are three main attributes to this supreme or perfect happiness. 1, it is constant and need not be searched for. It is an inherent quality of the heart. 2, it is free. It is not dependent on anything else. For example, it is not reliant on sense object. And 3, it is pure. It is complete. There remains no latent or lingering dukkha, suffering. Supreme happiness is consistent because it has become an inherent feature of one's life. For this reason, one needs not search for it. Gautama Buddha, for example, was always happy whenever he went or wherever he went. When he journeyed in the forests and the mountains, when he was with other people, and when he was alone, because happiness was an indwelling quality in his heart. Supreme happiness is independent and free. This differs altogether from sense pleasure, which is completely dependent on external material things. Sense pleasures requires the pursuit, the appropriation of things. One must look after and guard these things intensely, zealously. One loses one's own independence. One vies with others, leading to conflict and oppression. By developing independent happiness, one is inwardly free, and one need not compete with anyone else. Supreme happiness is pure and complete. No disturbances or irritation remains in the mind. Many people claim that they are happy, but deep down they still remain dukkha, suffering, or the causes for dukkha, the causes for suffering. For this example, they may still have latent anxiety, have fear, have distrust, melancholy, boredom, or loneliness. The purported happiness is not spacious, clear, and full. When all the causes for dukkha, suffering, have been removed from the mind, happiness is replete. There remains no latent suffering that could disturb the mind. If one wishes to experience other forms of happiness, one can do this fully. One is inherently happy. One is prepared to experience all forms of happiness to the utmost satisfaction. Take arihats, for example, who have endowed with this inherent and complete happiness at all times. Besides abiding in the complete happiness, they are also able to experience other forms of happiness according to their wishes. They experience these forms of happiness to the fullest measure. When arihats are free or have free time and are not engaged in other activities, they may enter the fourth concentration, meditation of enjoyment of jhana, and enjoy the bliss of jhana, jhana sukha. They use the concentration, meditation, absorption jhanas to abide at ease in the present. Buddhadhamma sukha vihara. They derive the utmost joy from these states of concentration, meditation, absorption of jhana, because no latent irritations or annoyances remain in the mind. This stands in contrast to those unawakened human beings who may be able to access jhana, but who have still the roots or seeds of dukkha lingering in their minds. Their joy is not truly spacious and free. In the Magga Sutra mentioned earlier, Gautama Buddha states that if one has not yet realized the profound happiness, there is no genuine or no guaranteed that one will not fall back and seek out sense pleasure once more. But if one does have this realization, there is no way that one will consider seeking gratification by way of sense pleasures. This is similar to adults who observe children playing and pretending to be shopkeepers. They won't feel that behaving in this way themselves will provide happiness. This is not because they cannot engage in this activity, but because they have experienced higher form of happiness. Within the natural development of happiness, the mind will automatically respond in this way. To sum it up, arihats are endowed with inner happiness that is present at all times. They are able to enjoy other forms of happiness fully, according to their desire. If it is so, happens that they do not take pleasure in other forms of happiness, this is because they have passed beyond the associated desire and have accessed a higher form of happiness. Finally, G, acting for the happiness of all. Because happiness is complete and spacious, arihats are able to immediately derive delight from wholesome things. When they come into contact with nature, say by ascending a mountain or entering a forest, their delight is spontaneous and instant, free from any inner obstruction or impediment. This is in contrast to people who still harbor the seeds of suffering. When they arrive at a delightful place, myriads of thoughts and emotions disturb the mind, like worry, anxiety, unease, and thoughts of rivalry, commerce, politics, etc. This prevents them from being happy. Even if they are happy, their happiness is limited. Arihats, on the other hand, find happiness wherever they go, even unfavorable environments, because of a source of delight. This happiness does not extend only to themselves. Other people who live in their company experience ease and comfort in places that previously caused disquiet and turmoil. Now, this is a note from the Dhammapada. In Pali, Game va yati varane nine va yane va thare yata arahanto viharati tampu mari ramareyan kam. This is from the Dhammapada, verse 98, translated as, whether in a village or in a forest, on a hill or in a dell, wherever arihats dwell, delightful indeed is that spot. Wherever arihats dwell, they themselves are joyous, and people surrounding them are delighted. Arihats are able to view offensive and disagreeable things as pleasurable and agreeable because they have mastery over their perceptions. They have developed the sense faculties, bhakti indraya. This demonstrates the human potential for happiness corresponding to spiritual development. If one practices the Dhamma correctly, happiness generally increases in this way. When happiness is complete, all other spiritual qualities are complete. This follows a natural process. Like a hen incubating an egg, if the conditions are present, the chick will hatch with certainty. There is no room for doubt. As mentioned earlier, it is valid to describe Buddhism as a system of developing happiness or a process of eliminating dukkha, suffering. Let's read that again. Buddhism as a system of developing happiness or as a process for eliminating dukkha. One may use any other description that is in line with the law of Dharma that accords with nature. They all refer to the same thing. Before we finish, there is one more subject to touch upon. Complete and perfect happiness has attributes that are expressed outwardly. Arihats have completed their spiritual training and brought happiness to perfection. Indeed, all their spiritual qualities are fulfilled, converging at wisdom, the supreme knowledge of awakening, which leads to deliverance. They relate to things in a correct and balanced way. Arihats are given the epithet katakaraniya, those who have done what had to be done. Nothing remains to be done in order to bring about a state of completion or in order to make themselves happy. Nothing is left unfinished in their spiritual training and development. Their spiritual development is complete. They are adepts, no more neophytes. They are fully developed by Vita. What does one do when there remains no personal business to attend to? Nothing to be done in order to be happy or to develop oneself spiritually? One is still alive. One is consummated in virtuous conduct, mentally proficiency in wisdom. One is brimful of extraordinary experiences. The question is, one uses all of one's remaining energy to foster the well-being of the community, of the many folk, of the mass fold. It is the Buddhist principle that someone who realizes Nibbita acts for the welfare of the loka, of the world. As mentioned above, wisdom leads to liberation of the mind. Liberated individuals are fully prepared to respond to those who are still afflicted by dukkha, by suffering. They generate genuine compassion, karuna, and develop themselves to alleviating the dukkha of others, the suffering of others. This is the essential task of arihats. It is normal for people to vent their dukkha outwards, their suffering outwards. If they use their speech carefully to express their suffering, it can ease the tension. There is a good possibility that this will help to solve the difficulty. But if they are heedless, apamato, with speech, the expression of dukkha, suffering, may escalate into physical gestures of violence, causing much trouble and turmoil for others. Happiness, too, can be radiated outwards. Those individuals who are replete in happiness and whose minds are liberated wish to facilitate the mental emancipation of others. Arihats are similar to people who have freed themselves from shackles and chains when all personal distress and affliction has been quelled. They feel compassion for others who are still bound. They want to offer assistance. They then spend the majority of their time trying to help others be free. When Gautama Buddha was sending the first group of the 60 arihats out to proclaim the Buddhist dispensation, the Buddhist teachings, he said that both he and they were similar in beings liberated from all snares and bonds, both human and divine. He went to say, Bhikkhus, wander forth for the welfare and happiness of many folk, for the compassion and assistance of the world. Kana charata binkave charikam pahu charna hitaya pahu charna sukhaya lokanu kampaya. This is the motto of all arihats. Having completed all personal affairs and duties, they dedicated their lives for the good of the world, just as Gautama Buddha did. Just as Gautama Buddha did. From the very beginning, spiritual practices is twofold. It involves both self-discipline and assistance with others. Occasionally, as the case for bodhisattvas, individuals who have not reached a sotapanna stage or the arihat stage, an individual that's on the way to that stage is a bodhisattva. An increased emphasis is given to the latter of helping others. These two aspects of practice are intimately connected. For helping others is one way to promote self-development. All aspects of spiritual practice, whether one focuses on personal training or one focuses on helping others, are all part of one's spiritual development. As long as one has not finished what one has to be done, both aspects of practice are part of this personal development. When one has brought spiritual development to completion and accomplished all one's spiritual responsibilities, one's entire life is devoted to others. As mentioned above, those who realize nibbida acts for the welfare of the world. Here, the complete and perfect happiness inherent in the individual radiates outwards and becomes the happiness of all. The core, the essence, the focus of Buddhist teachings or Buddhist dispensations on happiness as the highest goal of spiritual practice, and other core teachings on happiness at the highest aim of fulfilling one's responsibility towards others as Buddhists are united. The teaching, Nibbana Nibbida, is the supreme happiness. Is integrated with the teaching. For the welfare of happiness of the many folk, for the compassion and assistance of the world. The highest reality of supreme happiness yields the happiness of many folks. Parama Sukha Paujana Sukha. Buddhism is a system of developing happiness. It is a religion of happiness. That's the end of chapter 11.11.